The vast swamps and wilderness areas of the state of Florida are home to a legend. Join Team Crypto Reality as they go after the truth. Go! For the first time in Bigfoot research history, you're going to see what it takes to be a real Bigfoot researcher. Real story from behind the scenes. As it turns out, finding Bigfoot was the easy part. The Bigfoot Researcher's Journal. Seeing is believing.
Let's take a look at that clip again, and we're going to thoroughly examine it, because there are actually a few Bigfoot, but one in particular is actually visible. It's obvious now that these guys were about to kill these deer when we pulled in. So I'm shooting this through the windshield, and there are a few Sasquatch, but one in particular is right out front and visible. Let's check them out. Okay, so what we're looking at is a place that Mel and I call the runway, and it's got a tree line running straight down both sides of this place. And we're looking at the right side of it because obviously, as you can see right over here, we've got a deer, and then this little tail right here, this is another deer. He's behind the bush, but this is one of the does, and this is actually another doe. But the interesting thing is what's really going on here is there are a couple of Bigfoot, and we're going to do a little Ken Burns over here, and I'm going to show you basically how perfectly positioned these guys are in relation to this deer over here. The Sasquatch are over in this area here, and there could be some other ones in here. I'm not going to try to talk about them, but this one in particular right here, this guy right here, this is the guy. Now there's, like I said, possibles. It appears to be that there's a very large individual in the background here, but this guy's out in the forefront. It looks like possibly his shoulder come down this way. So let's do a little contrasting and see if we can bring that guy out a little bit. Let's see what it does. See right here, now we can see the head a little bit better. There's the eyes, and this is going to be the nose and the bridge of the nose. Let's see if we can add a little more to bring him out. Yeah, see, now we're starting to see we've got the nostrils and the bridge right here, and then this part right here would be the eyes. There's a lot of stuff hanging in here, but based on what we've seen and experienced in this area, they have no qualms about being here. This guy, unbelievable, right? I mean, look at him. Let's do a little bit closer zoom and see if we can. And this is incredible, right? We know why they're sitting here. I mean, this is like a no-brainer. Right here is your Bigfoot. That's the top of his head. You can see both of his nostrils here, the eye area. And it looks like there's either some kind of a knuckle or a hand possibly up here. So this is, how they do it. They watch. They watch the deer. They know exactly where they're going, exactly what they're going to do, and they're staged up, ready to pounce on these guys. Let's move through this and see if we can get this a better frame. And we've already advanced a frame, and it's like even clearer. So we'll add our differences in contrast, and we'll bring this guy out a little bit. Let's take a look at what he does just by advancing. See right here, you can get a good shot of a good look at the underside of his nostrils right in here. This would be the bridge of the nose, so his head's up in here. Let's see if we can pull a better frame of the nose. If you keep watching right here, he's leaning out, watching us in the car. I'm shooting this through the windshield. You can see that nose is crinkled right there. It's so hard to detect these things. And here I am picking up on this stuff. And oh, yeah. And see, it does appear that there's, possibly another one here in addition to what's going on around him. But you can clearly see this guy's nose now, the whole nose. You can see the nostril. It's flared right off the side there. This would be the bridge, and you can see it. Let's take a still frame of that if we. Sometimes tracking is like this. And hopefully that trail leads you to this kind of trail in a different substrate. As you continue tracking, you will track through different environments and different substrates. Because they're walking through them. When it all comes together, and for obvious reasons, having just tracked the animal with human-type feet into a canopy or tree line, when you capture this kind of stuff on film and you hear the animal, there's no second guessing it. When you hear people say, "I don't see anything" in shots like these, you know they're simply not being honest. There are people all over the country researching Sasquatch in the field and dedicating valuable personal time to this, and they are getting results. Our study is valid. We have plenty of witnesses to this fact of reality. People that have been with us in the field, seen the tracks, heard the Sasquatch, or seen the Sasquatch, heard them running and jumping in the water, heard them having conversations in the bush, found hair samples, viable, testable hair samples. When people say they can't see what is obviously right there in that little highlight, I have to question that intelligence behind that. You can't see that? I'm questioning your intelligence right now.
The Bigfoot Researcher's Journal.
Welcome to the journal, folks. This is what it's all about, right? Field research, getting results. The Sasquatch, it's a good shot too. There's a bunch of them back there, but that guy, there's no doubt. Today we're going to look at some hair. Some hair that Deborah H. collected last year, 2017, on the members' campout. So watch how when I move this hair just appears to come to life. Look at that. It's stationary. It's taped down, for God's sakes. But look at how it like seems to pulse in the light. So this is Deb's sample. no joke. I'll tell you what, man, this is some really interesting physical properties. This sample was taken by Deborah H., 50 yards behind the campsite in what appeared to be some kind of a makeshift orchestrated blind. And as you can see, these hairs match exactly the hairs that we found 1 year later.
You feel how strong that hair is?
Oh, I do, babe. I
Let's
do.
take a close-up of it. There's some Sasquatch hair for you right there.
There. It's hard to see on the
It's
camera.
thick and black. It looks like, I'll tell you what else. It's freaking powerful. So.
And hold it tight around your feel. And
That is some coarse hair right there. 12 to 14 inches long.
And it looks like there's follicles on the one end.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there we got some Sasquatch hair. What do you got hanging there? They're going under it and it's catching on it.
Yeah. Yep.
So we found an area
Quite a
here.
bit. And it seems to be that we find it on
Bro,
the acorn
are you
trees.
freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
See, can you see it on the film?
It's hard to see, but yeah, you can see it.
About 1,000 yards from the camp. Look at how that thing comes to life when the light source moves. Now picture the forest canopy and the branches and leaves above the Sasquatch. Look, this thing, it just is exactly what I've seen. The thing doesn't seem real. Direct sunlight, you get a completely different view. This is spectacular. Look at that. So here's a diameter comparison. That's one of Melanie's little hairs with the hair that you saw me holding. It's like 4.5 times the diameter of my wife's hair. Okay, so we're in the editor, and we're going to take a look at this individual right here. You can see this dude's forehead and his nose area, and then this would be the mouth area. So we're looking at like a brow ridge, the slits where the eyes are at, a little bit of nose. In this particular start of the clip, Melanie and I were tossing apples, and we heard this guy walk up. Like if you look back here, you can see this line. This is the back side of this Sasquatch. They are immense. So you can see probably more than likely there are other ones. We're not going to get into that. His face, I believe, is in front of one of his family members. But this guy is big, man. Okay, this brush right here, this is right around 6 feet. And it's a little taller up in this area. But this is a clan that we've been working for a while now and trying to get them trained to respond to our voices, in that every time we say certain things and we say the same thing every time, we throw an apple. So when they hear a phrase, they know, or they associate that phrase with, there's going to be an apple coming in here. And so what happens is because we do the same things over and over again and are predictable, they then become predictable. And that's really how we're doing this. We found areas where we find tracks and we find the signatures of the species. We may even have encounters where they're running off through the bush as we enter, or, you know, there's a myriad of things that they'll do. Smacking palm fronds, actually vocalizations where they're off in the bush making these sounds, or they'll respond to me. So once we figure that out, then we start the experimentation phase to try to get them to where they're a little more comfortable with our presence by offering the apples. And we do that a certain way. We throw it in the same spot every single time, and we make the exact same vocalization ourselves. Melanie will say a key phrase very loudly, and most times, after a couple of months of this, the second they hear Melanie, they start to come. And this is one of those times. We're going to review that now. What you can see is if you watch this area right here, and I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of a lighting kind of effect on it to brighten this up. This is the individual. His backside is on the other side of the tree. So we're looking at a hulking dude here, man. Probably around 8 feet, somewhere in there. Like I said, the brush is about this tall. But as we scroll through, and I'm going to expand the timeline a little bit so that I can do this a little smoothly, a little more smooth than it would be. What you can see is the individual appears to be moving his mouth a little bit, and there's a possibility that he's already chewing on an apple. You can see right in here, as I scroll the timeline, this would be the eyes. You can see this area like moving around. And right here you can actually see the lighter skin on the upper lip and the slit of the mouth. So this would be the Sasquatch's head, the cheekbone in this area and the nose in this area. And as we advance frames, you're going to see this individual much clearer. But I wanted you to notice that he does appear to be chewing on something. And so as we advance frames, and that's an apple, obviously, right? We've already thrown there. He comes walking up. So Mel's talking about this as we film it. I'm seeing what I think is a Sasquatch mark. Now, again, this individual is achromatically distorted. They have that gray skin, and it picks up the tones. You see this brightness coming off of these plants here. This is the afternoon sun, and we're facing east, so the sun is behind us, and it's glaring off of these things. Now, I just added a light effect, and it intensified it. But the bottom line is he's inside that tree line, and this brush is diffusing the sunlight, and it's picking up some of those green tones, and it's hitting that light gray skin, giving the illusion, the impression, that it's actually a greenish tone, when really it's a light gray tone. And again, if you look, you can see over in here the side of this guy. He's big, man. He's behind that tree. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crop this a little bit more so that we can get in a little closer. There we go. Okay, so now this is the individual's head, and his back will be sticking out over in this area. This is probably part of it. And there could be other ones here because this is a group that we're studying. And so, you know, what we want to do is we want to pay close attention to everything that's going on behind him as well. But for this, we're looking at this guy, right? So here we go. We're going to start scrolling, and you can see where the eyes actually opening up and closing a little bit, where he's squinting. And as we go forward, you're going to be able to see these frames a little better. You got nose movement, and if you look carefully, this is not parallax or pixel distortion. The only thing that's moving in this segment that I'm doing is the individual's face. He's moving his face, right? None of the bush around it is moving. You can look at that again. The only thing that's moving there is the Sasquatch's face. None of this stuff is moving. There's no pixel distortion. Yes, we're zoomed in on the clip, but you can see this thing in there. And here we can see this is the mouth, and then the eyes are here in the forehead, and the head goes up like this, right? So you've got the apex and the backside of the tree. You can see this individual. Probably this is part of the shoulder in this area here. This is a large individual, and as we advance frames, and there are some pretty good frames in here, you're also seeing some plant life. There are little plants and stuff hanging and little leaves, but you can definitely see his face. As we move forward, this is actually a little bit better shot. You can see the side of his face, and his head goes up like this, and it does appear that there's something else with him. And it actually is kind of moving. If you look here, it looks like the bottom of a nose. So he could be in front of another one of his family members. Either way, they're definitely waiting for apples. There's no logical explanation for why this Sasquatch, this huge creature, is standing there watching us, except for the fact that we've been training them to do that for, at this point, about a year. So they know who we are. We pull up, I blow the horn. Sometimes I get out of the car and I catch them before I even leave the car, from the car, zooming in on the actual creek bed. It's important to recognize the bone structure. You see this square right here? I'm kind of outlining it. This is the bone structure of a Florida Sasquatch right here, around the eyes. So this would actually be the eye socket right here, and you look at the bone structure. And then we've got the upper lip. So we've got a relict hominoid skull right here in the tree line, and you can see that relict hominoid kind of upper lip area. and then the nose would be right in here. But here's the eyes, and the forehead's up here. Then we've got the head, and it's a little more defined in this shot where you can see it's coming up. He's actually tilted on an angle around the tree. It wouldn't surprise me if, you know, this being his back, if he's got his hand down on the tree somewhere down here. They have very big arms and very, very large shoulders. So that's actually a pretty good frame. So we're going to still frame that, and then we'll do a little highlight circle to help you out. And let's see here. Bring that in a little bit. And now we've got the area highlighted, right? And you can see them a little bit better. Moving on, we're going to check some more frames. And actually, we're getting some really good frames in here of this individual. This is really, really a great clip. You can see there's a little bit of movement in there. But we want to move on to some of these other still frames I have down in here. Now you can see them right up here. And again, we've got the back and the shoulder area. I mean, these things, really, it doesn't make sense if you don't understand that their faces are down. They appear to be down on the upper part of their chest because their backs and their trapezius muscles are so huge and they attach to the back of the skull. So this being his face, we know that this dude's back and the shape of this, if we were to draw a line, directly fits eyewitness descriptions and really what I've seen, what Melanie's seen, and what thousands of other people have seen. You've even got the curve of the shoulder where it dents in and the tricep comes out a little bit. So just looking at this, this is incredible. I mean, we're able to see some of the bulk of this individual. Now, as we move forward, now again, I want you to try to pay attention to this relict hominoid bone structure, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a hominoid skull, an archaeological find, and here it is right here. Check it out. Now look at the comparison of the skulls. Right? And there's going to be comparisons throughout this, all right? I'm going to continue putting that up there. But this is a great frame. You can actually see this guy's eyeball. Look in there. Okay, so this is a great frame, and what I want to do is I want to take this zoom and bring it in a little bit more so that you guys can actually see. There we go. Okay, so now we're staring at a Sasquatch, right? We've got the shoulders. We've got the head up in this area. And you can even see this guy's eye and partial, that one. But you can see that nose and the archaic human primate, the relict hominoid bone structure. Right here, this is a living, breathing Sasquatch. It has responded to Pavlovian-style experimentation with apples. It's real simple. There's nothing complicated about this. Long-term research in the same areas, developing our experiments to try to get these guys to respond to us is paying off to the extent that we now have hair and DNA, right? So all along, we've been doing this in the background and working on, there it is as it clears up, and you can actually see this guy, right? Now, if I expand that circle, again, you can see this individual's backside on the other side of the tree, right? Right over here. So this is a bulky, big individual, man. And then, yeah, it's possible there's another one, but we're really focused on him, and that is just an incredible frame. Again, you can see the eyes, and so let's move forward and see what else we got. Actually, I managed to still frame that earlier. I didn't even realize it. Yes, we do see them when we film them. A lot of the time, they will try to hide in the brush and observe us, and so when we hear them walk up, we film in that area. And sometimes we don't actually see them. We hear them walk up, and so we film in the area of the disturbance. In this particular instance, the individual is standing in pretty much in the open. Yes, he's in the tree line. He's standing in a creek bed that's 3 to 4 feet deep, and that puts this individual, based on this brush right here, right around 8 feet. It's a big dude, man. It's a big dude, and looking at shots like these, you really get a sense that you are able to bring them into you. And this has been described by a lot of people, though I'm not aware of a lot of footage from these type of experiments. You can see that it is possible. It is possible as a researcher. You obviously, we've tried this in other areas and it hasn't worked. But in this particular area, it is paying off, as you can see, with the footage. You know, I mean, we've got what's obviously a hominoid here, and it's excellent from a research standpoint, because when you can see your experiments paying off to get better documentation, it really is rewarding. And you know, so as we scroll forward, you can see there's really a couple thousand frames of this individual. Coming up to this frame here, man, that's great stuff, man. You can see this guy's whole face, his eyes and all that stuff, and the big, you know, bulge of his shoulders behind it. I mean, we're looking at a bulky individual here. And I'm loving this clip. I'm loving it, man. You know, this is success. A lot of hard work went into getting this particular shot. You know what I mean? And when it all pays off, when you track them in and you come up on a tree line and the tracks leading into it, and you can capture footage of these guys, you can begin your experimentation process. You can begin the collection of physical evidence, trace evidence, the DNA, physical evidence, the hair, cataloging the tracks that you find, the variations in size, the bell curve within all of this, right? We find a bell curve within the tracks. What does that mean? It means we find tracks that represent a family group. Another confirmation that we're dealing with a living species. Obviously, we're eyewitnesses. We understand what most of the general public doesn't. But all of these are confirmations scientifically. And so documenting these things is very valuable. If you're a researcher, document it all. Document it all. There are no people running around in the middle of the wilderness barefoot, save the relict hominoids. They're the only ones, right? And you know this. You won't do that yourself. Why would you? It's just not done, right? Finding tracks of different sizes is normal. If you're a Sasquatch researcher, you better get used to it, because they do procreate quite a bit from what we see. There are lots of juvenile tracks that we find. We find infant tracks all the way up to the huge ones, the big males, like this guy right here. Thanks for watching the Bigfoot Researcher's Journal. We'll see you next time.